There we go. We're recording. So welcome to the RE Soul Matters Implementation Lab for the theme of curiosity for May next month. It's April 2019. A couple of announcements. The themes are out for 2019-20, and thanks to Sam, and there was some other DREs on those calls for setting the themes. That was a first time event, and it was really neat to have your input. I'm excited about those themes. Also, the subscriptions are out, and I wanted to mention to us as RE people, what happened with the RE packets? That's what the question. I called up Scott and I said, the worship packet subscription alone is $185. The small group packet is $185, and the RE packet is $200 for the year. And I was like, cool, does that mean we're worth more? He said, no, actually, no. They upped the price of the other packets to $185 from whatever they were. And the RE packet stayed the same to honor that oftentimes RE budgets are the ones that are the most challenged. So that's what it looks like. But in addition, he wanted to let us know as religious educators that he really appreciates how much more work, and this is his quote, more work religious education is. He's like, you know, you run a small group and it's an hour, or you give a sermon and it's an hour, and you guys are working on all these programs, which include social justice and music and everything that we're doing. So he also acknowledges that the RE packet is 3 times as many pages as anyone else's, the small group and the worship. I was like, oh, cool, really? I mean, we do children and chapel and youth and little guys and families and UU identity and books and for all ages, so that's pretty neat. And then at the same time, he wanted to say that if you buy any of these subscriptions, it's like getting an RE assistant for $20 a month. I thought, oh, cool. That's another good reason to subscribe. So here we go for the RE assistant packet for the theme of May and curiosity. First, I'll do a little review, and Sam and Karina know this, but I'll do this for our listening audience. A little review of my lenses that I was looking through when I wrote this packet, and then some of the highlights, and then we'll go into anything we want to talk about. Implementation challenges, all whatever. So there's 4 Sundays in May. So I chose 4 lenses. Scott and I sit there and we brainstorm. The lenses are curiosity and understanding, curiosity and imagination, curiosity and humility, and curiosity and the other one, science, I think. Yeah, imagination. So in our attempts at looking at religious education as a way of helping our children, youth, and families spiritually mature, that's a new way for me in terms of looking at it. We are helping their faith formation. I've said that before. But to be spiritually mature, we're doing a couple of 4 practices. So we want them to look at something from all sides. That's one practice. We want them to close the gap between people. We want them to practice imagining what could be. And we want them to practice and have a practice of approaching new things with a beginner's mind. So if we all practice that, if we make that our spiritual practice, I believe that we are on the path, on the journey of becoming more spiritually mature. And welcome, Beth. I see you just joined us. So those are the practices which are the lenses and which underlie those 4 sessions. So the first one, I also know that we as religious educators like to use that source of wisdom from the world religions. And so Ramadan starts in the beginning of May. So I use that as an opportunity to look through being curious about something, Ramadan, and trying to understand it. So that was the piece I put in there for Ramadan. For curiosity and imagination, that's my science angle. And Sam or Karina, one of you said last time in a brainstorm that the Mars rover, the name of it is Curiosity. And that just warms my heart. And they actually had a little memorial service for the first one that landed on Mars, because it finally disappeared from all the radar after running for 7 years when they thought it would run for months. And now Curiosity is out there doing its thing. And I thought that was neat. So that's my science stuff. And then Curiosity and Humility, I put that at the end of the month because I know in many churches and many congregations, we're sort of busy, and finally Memorial Day weekend runs around. And dare I say it, we need a filler for Memorial Day weekend. And it's also Fifth Sunday. I thought of Karina. Yeah. And so I put in the beginner's mind is, what would it be like to eat a bowl of cereal with a beginner's mind? So my image came up, it's like Captain Crunch or something granola. And you're sitting there, what would this be like for the first time? And I just think it would blow the kids' minds to say, come on in, you're going to be eating a bowl of cereal for Sunday school. And of course, there's a whole depth of stuff you can do with humility and beginner's mind, but it doesn't have to be complicated. So that's my little 4 things. Let's see if there's anything else I wrote. Oh yeah. So also the event for May is Mother's Day. And I don't want to lose that, because for many children, it is a very sentimental time. For those of us who are staff, it's a sentimental time yet again. You know, sometimes the ministers are like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do on Mother's Day this time? So I suggest we go to Mama's Day, which is the thing we did even last year too. I just love their stuff, acknowledging the multicultural dimension of Mama's Day and mamas who run the world, but also making a caring day so that children who don't have a biological mother, or children who are cared for by grandparents, or children who have 2 fathers, we call it Caring Day. And we can still acknowledge the piece of curiosity that is compassion. So if you're compassionate enough to be curious about something, you can be curious about Mama's Day and Caring Day. I think that was all I had. You guys have any questions about any of that yet that I just ran through? Okay. And I'm assuming that Beth is shaking her head no. I'm going to put my real name in here. There we go. Not B. Scott Prime. There we go. Hi. All right. So I thought I'd open it up like we do. This is implementation. What are you all looking at for May? And Karina, you're first on my screen, you lucky duck.
Well, it is kind of end of school year, beginning of summer for us. I do think the school district has the children come back for 1 or 2 days after Memorial Day weekend, but then we're done. Mother's Day, yes. My church is doing flower communion this month. Not on Mother's Day. I think they're doing it on the first Sunday of the month. There are only 4 Sundays in May, not 5.
Oh yeah, you're right. 4.
So it's not one of those.
Okay, it's not one of those. That's right.
It's so yeah, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge, but what I'm excited about is that curiosity is a really good theme that moves into our summer. So we don't do the June theme we move into our kind of summer curriculum that we do, because we collapse to one room schoolhouse during the summer and have a camp like curriculum over the summer. And the last two we've done were Harry Potter and Passport to the World. And this summer we're doing Tinkering Time, which is like a makerspace kind of thing. And the older kids hopefully will be building a little free library. But so curiosity is kind of a good entree into that. Frankly, I have not looked at the packet yet. There also, our minister is retiring, and he is less and less in the pulpit. So there's also some kinds of like strangeness with lots more guests preaching.
Yeah.
So you want to try and have some stability in terms of my part of the order of service, doing the Wonder Box. Also, we do have a relationship with a Muslim organization. And so we do have an Iftar meal with them during Ramadan every year. And so a lot of our families do come out for that, even though it's kind of hard because they, of course, don't eat till sundown.
Right.
And we were just like, you can pregame your kids and feed them before you come. It's okay. And it's a big, they bring a lot of people. So yeah, that's going to happen on the first week of the month, or the second, on the 9th.
Nice.
On a Thursday.
Right in the early part. Are you familiar with this book?
Yes.
That's one of the best for
Yes.
preschoolers. I just love it. Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns.
Yeah, we've read that during Time for All Ages before too. Yeah, that Memorial Day weekend, we usually have a family picnic after church, and we'll do that again. And it's where there's a splash pad, so people can get wet. I'm going to be out for 3 Sundays in a row, which is really unusual. My daughter's graduating, and then we're taking vacation, so I'm going to be gone for the last 2 Sundays of this month too. So one of my big stresses is I have to prepare plans for when I'm not there, 3 Sundays worth before I even leave. And so one of those might be a filler. I have a teacher who's going to do children's chapel for me, which is always on the first of the month. And then we rush right into that summer curriculum when I get back.
Neat.
Trying to think if there's anything else. Speaking of curiosity, this phrase that I kind of like is that, approach any situation with curiosity rather than judgment. And it's a really nice reminder for people who are teaching, for people who have a child who is struggling, or isn't compliant in the way we would like them to be. It's like, approach that with curiosity rather than judgment. And but the other thing that's going on with me is that I'm in credentialing, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm not as available to come to these calls as I was in the past. And Katie, I read Full Circle and used that as one of my books for faith and human development competency area.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And you saw Beth was giving you a woohoo too. We're very supportive of you doing all that. And I just want to mention also, congrats for being able to say very calmly you're going to be gone for 3 weeks, because you were very calm. And I can share with you one of the biggest regrets I had of being a DRE for those 33 years is that my family was always interrupted for their weekend stuff because we had to be here on Sunday. And so I recommend highly that DREs do their family things without guilt.
My contract says something like I can't miss more than 2 Sundays per month, but I'm taking 2 in one Sunday and then one in the other. Right. So it does wind up being 3 in a row. It's a little, I think that's the most I've ever taken in a row.
And they'll survive, and they'll really appreciate you when you get back.
Yes. And then I'll turn right around and go to GA. So that's no, I'll miss a Sunday soon after I get back. I think I'm there for 2 Sundays and then, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's great. Thank you. Good sharing. Sam, you want to share a little bit about your May or whatever's going on?
May, first thing on my brain, which honestly, it's on my brain the entire year, is bridging. We have our bridging service and RE volunteer appreciation in May. So curiosity with bridging, I think, is just such a beautiful combination because it's curiosity of that next step and not knowing what happens next, and that's okay. It can be a safe feeling, it can be fun, it can be intriguing, and there's some fear with it, but embracing it. So I'm really excited to explore that theme as we prepare for our bridging service, and curious how many tissues I'll go through because it's bridging.
Yeah.
which which is always beautiful and bittersweet. uh, for Mother's Day, we're taking a different train of thought in that our minister wants to explore celebrating our legacy for our congregation. It's a very female-centered service, but it's about the idea of nurturing. Mothering is often tied into that nurturing vibe, and how have the people who have been a part of our congregation since the beginning, how have they helped nurture our congregation and its growth and its beauty, and nurturing it through the tough times, and also showing that there are multiple generations within our congregation, whether they're new or long standing. So I'm really intrigued by this, and I think it's going to be a nice way to acknowledge Mother's Day, but looking at it from a different perspective. So I'm looking forward to that one. And of course, I'm really excited to pull in that science vibe, probably during Memorial Day weekend. Yeah, looking at curiosity and showing the videos and reading the book and letting kids get hands-on and play and explore. That was the first thing that popped into my brain when we first started talking about curiosity, is science and how much fun that can be. So I'm looking forward to exploring curiosity in the month of curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Oh, yeah, that sounds great. There is a great TED Talk. I didn't want you all to be afraid of it because it's short. You know, TED Talks are usually sort of long for kids, 15, 20 minutes. This one's 8 or 9 minutes. And it's about a young man who now is probably 14 and how he invented a system to keep the lions away from his cattle. He's a Maasai. It's fascinating and it's a real gem. So I hope you all get to use that somehow in coming up with being curious about how to solve a problem is what it is. Yes, and Sam's like, yeah. Beth, would you like to come and join us?
Yes, absolutely. I'm sorry I don't have a webcam on my work computer, so I'm always here and I'm always listening. But I use the phone as my way to keep in contact here.
Great.
So I feel like May is going to go incredibly, incredibly fast. The probably most important thing there's two giant things that are going to happen. One, I'm going to be leading or helping to facilitate K1 OWL for the first time. I've done 7 through 9 OWL, and I am trained in both. Myself, I am the backup teacher, as I only have 2 trained teachers, and I feel like having a third is always a really good idea since you need a team. But in any case, I actually do have a question for the group for those who have run it before. Currently, because I am the third trained person and because of my normal DRE duties on a Sunday morning, I am planning on holding the class session directly after regular religious education, and having religious education maybe be a little bit lighter and more playful than usual to allow developmentally for the kids to be able to participate. But I wonder if anyone else has some experience with that and might be able to speak to whether that's a terrible scheduling decision or how they've run it in the past.
Karina's got her hand up.
I just last Sunday finished my last session of K1 OWL. And I did it myself. And I just had parents in the room the whole time, so I didn't feel like I needed to have two people. I asked the parents what time they would prefer, and they wanted to do it before service. So we started at 9. We went from 9 to 10, and our service starts at 10:30. We could have easily started at 9:30 and gone, because this didn't quite take an hour each time. I had 7 kids in the class, and 5 of them were from our church and 2 were friends of one of the children. I understand your concern about keeping them for a long period of time, and parents of young children are often up and awake anyway, so them getting to church earlier was not a hurdle for them. I did have childcare for younger siblings. Most of the children in the class had a younger or older sibling, and they were right next door in our nursery while we were doing the class with one of our childcare providers. So that was a way to make it more accessible for people. And they just kind of played on the playground afterwards until service started. But yeah, the units are, I had never facilitated K1 OWL before this, and I felt like I could handle it on my own just as a way. And of course, I wanted to kind of prime the pump, and I was happy that there were 2 parents from the class who were interested in becoming facilitators for the 4th through 6th class after being exposed to it. So I felt like this was just a little investment of my time. I don't think I'm going to do this regularly, but it was a way to kind of kickstart, because this congregation is young and they hadn't had any exposure to OWL, especially at this level. So I felt okay doing it, even though it was a little difficult for me, a bit of a stretch to be preparing for that class in addition to everything else. I hope that answers some of your questions, Beth.
Great. And Sam has her hand up too. Why don't you jump in, Sam?
Our K1 class, which wrapped up a couple weeks ago, we held it after the regular RE class, and we kept that half-hour break in between just to give the kids that opportunity to grab a snack and run to the restroom and run circles around the building and get all of that energy released a bit after being in class for an hour, just a little under an hour. And classes still went well. We had 2 facilitators, and actually one of them was dealing with some health issues, so there were 1 or 2 classes that she'd missed. But Karina's right, having the parents in there relieved that some, so at least you still had adults and adult participation, but definitely having that 1 hour break. And I didn't have to adjust our RE curriculum at all, because as long as the kids got that break in between, the OWL class managed just fine. And we had 5 kiddos in there this year. So that's my 2 cents.
Beth,
Yeah.
Does that help?
That's incredibly helpful. I feel so much better going into it, knowing those things. Thank you guys so much.
Good question to ask today, I bet. And anything else going on for you for May, curiosity, or end of year stuff, Beth?
A lot of things. This is actually our second to last month of religious education in our community. Chicago Public Schools go all the way through June 23rd. So my RE programming will also go through June 23rd, with OWL finishing up actually even just the week after, due to a start date due to a training. Which, you know, people I assume will still be around for that one last week, but we're not quite in end of year gear yet. But my upper youth are going to do a coming of age trip with me to Boston, which I've also never done. So I'm excited, a little nervous. I've never been on an airplane with youth, although I have taken youth out of state on a couple of occasions before, but it'll be an adventure. I hope a fun one for everyone. So yeah, that's coming up on the horizon.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When is your trip?
We are coming out the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, great. Neat. All right. All right. I just wanted to lift up a couple of things that all of you might find helpful. We were very aware that people do flower communion. Some people do it during Easter. Sometimes it's done during Mother's Day. Sometimes it is done in the traditional time when Norbert Chapek offered it, which was June 2nd or the first weekend in May. And so because of that, we pulled back on including flower communion in the June packet because people are like, we need it now. And so I hope you saw that we created a Google file, and people have just been putting in all their flower communion resources. So I put in stuff that I wrote for last year's packets, but there's probably 20 different documents with tons of ideas on flower communion words. Yeah, okay. And DRE says she hasn't seen that. DRE Beth Moss, that's why I called you DRE. Sorry. Let's see, I'm trying to think of how I can do this. I'm sort of on the record, so it's hard for me to grab it, but it was on the Facebook page, the RE Religious Educators Soul Matters Facebook page. There's a link that Scott put up to that. And Beth, just shoot me an email and I'll find it for you after the call too. If I was really, really good, I would have had it up and put it in the chat box, but of course, I don't have it. Nope. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight that because you can always use those things April, May, or June, or anytime you want to do flower communion. Let's see. Oh, yes, the other thing I wanted to lift up was when you mentioned, Sam, about using the theme of curiosity for your bridging. That's where you get the power of thematic ministry, isn't it? That instead of just saying, here's bridging, we're doing, here's the lens of curiosity. And so how are we curious about the unknown that's coming up in your lives? And it deepens the experience for everyone who's sitting there listening to that service, because it's going to be the theme in their small groups in religious education. And then here is these young adults going off, and you're saying even their new lives are connected to the theme of curiosity. And that's why I love thematic ministry. It really gives us a depth. That is about it. It'd be sort of fun, Beth, to do your trip, although I suspect you're busy enough with just logistics, and yes, flying with youth is a joy. I've done it. We took 18 down. Oh, thank you. There it is. We took 18 people down to Guatemala and had a couple of flights there, and it's great. It's also pretty stressful. Anyway, however, in the best ideal world, wouldn't it be neat to have a little curiosity question in your group gathering as you are going through Boston, just to keep the theme going if you're interested? What are you curious about? It's sort of like doing crossing paths with the kids, if you do that for middle school. Dun, 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 dun. that was all of the sum total. Oh, I know what it was. In terms of the the May stuff that we can do, I put in jump rope. And at first, someone said, well, isn't that ableist? And I said, we did jump rope in GA summer camp a couple of years ago. And so many of the kids, these are middle school kids, didn't know how to jump rope at all, that those who had trouble jumping the rope were just part of the spectrum of who could jump rope. And instead of being very intimidating and getting that rope swinging overhead, we let each person say, I'd like the rope to lay on the ground, and I just want to jump over it. And that was something I said, it's certainly fine to just do that, because the fun of it is to just be part of this fun thing we're doing. So some of the kids just wanted it to lay down there. The next step up was jiggle it. We used to call it snake. So you're just wiggling it. So the younger ones, or the ones that were a little clumsier or whatever, they liked the tension of jumping over this, but it was still there. And then we did have two girls who were double Dutch champions. It's part of kid culture in their school. And so they got the acknowledgement of their skill and their practice, and they showed everyone how it was done, and they had to teach the kids who were doing the ropes even how to do it. But I find it's a nice thing to make Sunday school feel a little more like camp, like Karina, you're going into camp, and to get everybody outside doing something. And I could even visualize doing it on the big sidewalk outside of the church I used to serve, and inviting any adults who wanted to do it after the service to join in. So that was my comment about the visualization in my head about jump rope. All right. Then I think that was it. So now that we've gone through all this, have anything we have each said also brought forth other reflections or insights that you would like to share? And I'll just call on everyone, and I'll start with Karina again.
Well, coming to the call today, I had a couple things, because my mind is still very much in April.
Yes.
It's like, do I really have the ability to think about May right now? I don't know. And interestingly, there were 5 Sundays in Journey in March, and I used a book that I can't remember if it was one of your suggestions or not. That was, it's called What Do You Do with a Chance? And there's a series of these books, and I think you would really like them, Katie. They're by an author named Kobi Yamada. Kobi is Kobi. And what do you do with a chance? What do you do with an idea? What do you do with a problem? And they're really good. And I can say that what do you do with a chance? The kids read it in Journey because it's kind of like, you have life decisions. You're always a little bit able to think about, how your life is going to go based on choices that you make. But then I also read it as Wonderbox this past Sunday, because it was our stewardship kickoff this past Sunday. And we had, it's a really great story to use for that, because it's all about, are you going to step it up and take a chance? So I just wanted to mention that. And Great. Then in terms of Earth Day and Easter and all that stuff, not doing the petting zoo this year. Just having a regular egg hunt. But what we decided to do was make it a little collaborative. So we have rainbow eggs, and each child has to find one of each color.
Ooh.
So there might be some trading around, and then when they turn those in, then they get a bag of treats. So yeah, and red eggs are hard to find. I had to buy those separately from the from the other ones.
So much for the good idea, huh?
I know. I
What
mean,
are they, pink or something?
I mean, most of the egg sets, if you want to buy them in quantity, they come in a certain colors, and most of them are pastel, whatever. So even if you have blue, it can be light blue,
Right.
but red you can't really get away from, because then it's pink, and I don't know. So I find red eggs separately.
What DREs get to do?
Yeah.
Search the city for red eggs. Right. Cool.
And
All right. Thank you, Karina. All right.
I can't wait to have high schoolers someday. My oldest kids are in middle school right now, so I'm hoping
Well.
we'll be doing coming of age soon, but waiting for that day to be bridging.
Cool. Sam.
I'm blanking on who brought it up, but I am very much appreciating, I think it was Corinna, the reminder of, even when you have the children who are choosing to be challenging at the moment, to come at them with curiosity. We are definitely dealing with that in a couple of our classes, and especially towards the end of the year, it's really hard. There's so much going on. You're starting to deal with some burnout yourself, and with volunteers, and with families. Excuse me. So to take that moment to pause and you use curiosity with that child. Where is this child coming from? What's going on? Asking them questions, asking questions of their parents on how do we work on this together? And if we don't have an answer, that's okay. At least we're coming at it with an open mind and with love. And I feel like that's so much of what we do in this position anyway, is we troubleshoot with an open mind and with love, because we love these children and these families and respect them deeply. So thank you for that, reminding me that I need a touch of curiosity right now in my position, definitely.
Nice.
I just finished up teacher development Renaissance module, so there was a lot of that kind of thing, focus on the relationship, and shared praxis as we do our work together, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely been on my mind.
Nice. And Beth, last insights, reflections?
Actually, I had a last question for the group, and that would be about Mother's Day. I was wondering if anyone has the book The Boy and the Bindi. And I know that's generally a book that's used more for gender conversations, but I was wondering if, since I don't have it and I'm thinking about getting it, whether because of maybe from what I know about the book, the positive relationship between the mother and the child, whether that could be a good Mother's Day book as well from anyone who has it or has read it.
The title is very familiar to me, and I know it's on a lot of lists about being gender positive, but I don't know the book. Another tactic I've taken with Mother's Day to kind of broaden the focus of it is to talk about the whole peace aspect, and how Mother's Day was really an attempt to focus on not sending our sons to war at the time that it was proposed. And there's a Unitarian history, there's an involvement there, Julia Ward Howe, and you can talk a little bit about that too. And the book that I've used is Potatoes, and it's about a mother and two sons that join differing opposing forces in an army. And I think it's out of print, but you can still find it online. I try to really, as much as our culture focuses on Mother's Day in a very particular way. I feel compelled to like change up that narrative a little bit within our UU context and have it be a little more inclusive. And so, yeah, there's lots of different ways you can do it. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar intimately with that book, but I like your thinking on that.
Thank you, and thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Yeah, same here. I know the title. I'm not incredibly familiar with the book simply because you find books that fit with what you're working on in that moment, and I haven't found a spot for that one yet. I don't think it was last year, I believe the year before, thinking of, families are different and we view mothers and fathers in different ways. I did this for both Mother's Day and Father's Day, where it wasn't necessarily a gender-specific thing, but encouraging the kids to think about grown-ups, older mentors that, regardless of whether they're mother, father, female, male, whatever role they play in your life, thinking about the adults that love you, thinking about the adults that care for you, that want the best for you, and thinking about the feelings that they instill in you. So they still made little gifts, but it wasn't so much make a gift for mom, make a gift for dad. It was make something for someone that loves you, and they love you, and that they only want the best for you now and in the future. And they had a lot of fun with that. And it was interesting because they weren't just making things for mom, especially on Mother's Day. Yeah, I'm making this for my mom, or I'm making this for grandma or my aunt, but there were also gifts that were being made for the dads, for the uncles, for the grandfathers. And I didn't think about this when we talked about Mother's Day before, Katie. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, but it was a nice reminder that everyone loves you. That's families and extended families, and changing the idea of what a typical family looks like, that you are just loved.
I'm also a really big fan of the coupon book, the idea where there's some act of service that a child can give, and they can just give it out to whoever they want, so they can say, you could you could have pre-printed things and they can write what they want in there, or they can design them themselves. And then you can say, and now you have the power to just hand that out and make that a gift for someone. So, yeah.
And I'll chime in too, in terms of adding this service component that I love so much to making a little gift during Mother's Day. One of the sweetest things I saw was the children who were invited. We always used to do flower corsages. I'd buy a big bouquet at the supermarket and then divvy it up into little things and wrap it, and stick a pin and give it to people. And the ones who were invited, the children who were invited to make a little flower corsage for anybody who's brand new parent. So they were picking up a baby in the nursery, and they'd get one of these little flower corsages. And sometimes it was the first time, their first Mother's Day, or their first time when someone gave them something on these holidays. And it was so sweet because the children honored those brand new parents, and the new parents just were beaming. So I'll mention that too, as a way to take this idea and then take it away from families, but put into the whole congregation and how we take care of each other. Okay, well, I am happy we did our second go round, and I used to do that with the chapel too. When I didn't have tons of children, I would say, now that we've all gone around and checked in, what things did other people say that made you think of something? And in a way, it took the insights and the reflections and the sharing one level deeper, because then they'd say, well, it was like you, Sam, said, oh, I didn't think of this for Mother's Day now, but now I can say this. Or, yes, I remember a time when we had a teacher in our school who was really sick and what we did for her, so that became a connection time that second go round. Just like for us. If there are no other comments, I'll just send you all my love for what you're doing.
I will say I
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to put it on the Facebook page yet, but our bulletin board for April Wholeness was, my first image with wholeness was puzzle pieces. And so we passed out to people who wanted two coloring pencils and a piece of something, a piece of paper with some part of a design on it. And then we had to assemble it all on the bulletin board to see what it was. And it's a Zentangle chalice, if you know what Zentangle is.
Yes.
And so, yeah. And then, of course, there were plenty left over for the kids. And so they did some during their classes, too. So that was a fun one.
Post it. I love seeing all the bullets.
Yeah, I will put it up there when I get a good picture.
Awesome. All right. Love to you all and for the work we're doing. Have a great April, a great May. I'll see you for the next implementation lab. Will be for June, but I do know a lot of people are pulling their programs to a close. So if I don't see you, have a great summer too.
Yes, I'll have. We often use the June theme in August because we don't have. So we'll come back to it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Thanks so much, Katie.
You're welcome. Good to see you all.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.